Hello, poop shoot. I'm back. I got more stuff that I've been up to. More things I've done. More things I've consumed in my brain. Let's get right into it because I got 6 things today, a half dozen of various items. First up, the Captain Marvel Liberation Run book. Finished this a while back. It's, I don't know if it's, usually these Marvel novels are based on some graphic novels that have been written, and they kind of transcribe them or convert them into like more of a novel format. So in this one, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is on Earth, kind of on leave from her activities up in space, and she's out for dinner one night with a friend, and when she's walking home afterwards or whatever, she notices suddenly a rip in reality open up, and this ship that's in bad shape come passing through it, and it's obvious that it's going to crash land. So she does her hero thing, brings it safely to land in the Hudson River, and when the pilot comes out, it's just one young girl piloting the whole ship, and she immediately passes out after going, "I found you." So back at her organization's headquarters afterwards, as this young woman is recovering, she finds out that Medusa has an interest in this girl because she's actually an Inhuman, and Medusa knows that this girl was a part of an expedition force that left 10 years ago from Atalan to pursue kind of a new life for her and hundreds of her other Inhuman brethren, and so she's very curious about what happened to this girl and why she's there. And so when she finally comes to, she explains the whole thing that using her Inhuman talent, which is an ability to make tears in reality and find things that they're in need of, she led this force 10 years ago to find a new planet. She thought she had found them a good planet called Demaria, whatever, and turns out she was wrong. This Demaria was controlled by these this race of people that did not look kindly on outsiders and do not look kindly especially on women. And this young woman, Ree is her name, was basically a slave. Her parents were killed for kind of insubordination early on. The first day she was kind of brought before the Grand Master of this Demarian race, and ever since then she was brought up in this one of these maiden houses where they kind of teach these girls to obey and act the way the Demarians believe that they should. So she finally engineered this escape attempt, and that's why she ended up on Earth in the spaceship all on her own. So Captain Marvel's like, oh, that's not gonna stand. So she mounts this mission to go to Demaria and get some of Ree's friends back before deciding what they're gonna do about the whole problem there. She enlists Ant-Man. Oh God, what's his name? He's like the Hulk, but he's not. Now I forget. A guy that I never heard of, actually. And then Mantis goes along, and then they eventually call in some help from a friend of Captain Marvel's named Hepzibah. I've never heard of this character either. So yeah, but when they get to Demaria, they plan on this kind of covert operation to sneak in, get their people out, and take off without them even really knowing. But the Demarians are actually aware that they're coming. They're prepared for them. They mount a defense, and they actually have some sort of weapon or device that is dampening their powers. So like Ant-Man's suit is not operating consistently. Captain Marvel can't fly. So they're all being affected. Mantis's barriers are down, so she's feeling like the whole planet's worth of bad feelings, and she's overwhelmed. So they've got to find a way around this to try and get what they want to get done, while not having all of their powers and being severely outnumbered as well. So yeah, so it's just an adventure on this planet to try and get these people back and make the planet a better place for the future going forward as well. It was a good book, but I found it was totally all about the girl power in this book, and that's great. I love women and I love girl power and all that stuff, but it was to the point where it was getting preachy, and I don't like being preached at about anything. especially religion, but anything. It's just like when you go on and it's like hitting the person over the head with it. It's like, okay, I get it, like just let the story speak for itself, so that was my only kind of thing I didn't like about the book, is that it was very preachy, but other than that, it was a great story. Next up, the fourth and final book in the Keepers series, called The Starlit Loom. So as this book opens up, it's been 1 day since the Warren was raided by Dr. Jericho in the Riven, and Mr. Meister was captured by them. Isabel was overwhelmed by them, and they assume she's dead. And so the Wardens and the Keepers' first job is to make a raid on the Riven and rescue Mr. Meister, as well as young Joshua, who's the keeper of the portal, the Lathe of Tenevs. So Chloe is the only human going along on the mission, with her power of the Alva Lathan, if that's how you say it, her ability to go thin and travel through walls and all that stuff, as well as a number of Altari. So they mount this mission, they raid the Riven's temporary sanctuary, but before they can even get to Mr. Meister, Joshua stands up to the Riven and makes a portal and gets Mr. Meister out of there under his own power, so they don't have to worry about rescuing Mr. Meister. But Joshua doesn't go through the portal himself, he stays, so that's a little curious. So afterwards, everybody retreats to their separate corners, and through this action that happened in the Riven's sanctuary, we learn that the Riven's plan is that they have this creature that is capable of shaping the medium and making changes to things, and what they plan to do is to change Isabel, change her powers, and create a being unlike anybody's ever seen before. And with her having this new power, they want the Riven plan on her changing the Mother Gates to keep them open, because the whole theory behind this, that Mr. Meister and the Wardens and the Keepers have been working for so long, which is explained to Horace and Chloe in April after Chloe gets back to the sanctuary from this mission, is that the Mother Gates closing needs to happen, because basically it's much like the Infinity War. Actually, it's the story of the multiverse. So there's all these different realities. With every decision that is made, there's all these different branches, and with the use of these Tangi devices by the Keepers, especially Horus's Feldera, the one that can tell the future. It's over the years, it's twisted the medium. It's tangled all of these multiverse threads together, and only with the Mother Gates closing off for good will all of that sort itself out, and all of those realities all stay safe and ongoing. But the only problem is their reality will perish. So basically the Keepers and the Wardens are fighting to get these Mother Gates closed and save everybody else, but also destroy themselves in their own universe. So it's kind of a bittersweet kind of battle that they're fighting. So after discovering that the Keepers, like Chloe discovers on this mission, that is their plan for the Riven to have Isabel fix the Mother Gates. So Horace and Chloe are tasked with going to the other two Mother Gates. One is in Crete, the other is in Australia, and preventing Isabel from fixing them. And they do an admirable job at both of them and prevent it, leaving the one last Mother Gate at the Altari's home sanctuary of Kahoka. So it all comes down to this final battle when the Riven raid this to try and save that Mother Gate, while the Keepers and the Wardens try to let it close and destroy everything. But along the way, Horace comes up with a special idea / theory that they may be able to have their cake and eat it too. They could keep the Mother Gate open temporarily while they sort things out and possibly save themselves, but eventually let the Mother Gates close, but live through it. So it's one of those things with multiverse things and time travel. I find a lot as well. It kind of ties your head in knots, all the different possibilities and such. But I found that series very, very intense, and you know, there's a lot of consequences in this story, and a lot of people die, and a lot of hard decisions are made, and a lot of them coming from children, right? So these people thrust into these positions they should never be in, like, ever, let alone as a child. And I find because of that, you get very attached to the characters and stuff, very much so like the Golden Compass series, or the, whatever you call it, I forget what it's actually called, but I found with that one it was the same thing. But yeah, great series, and this is the only series that author has done in terms of young fiction. So hopefully he does some more, because I'd like to see what he would try and do on his kind of second try, right? So next up, recently finished this game, Mortal Kombat versus the DC Universe. It's a coming together. It's a what do you call it? I can't even think of the word. I'm so tired right now. When I started up the game, the story is that the DC heroes are in a battle with Darkseid, and they finally are about to catch him, but he escapes, or is attempting to escape, through a portal at the very last minute. But then Superman kind of blasts him with his eye lasers while he's going through this portal, and it suddenly throws things out of whack, and two worlds seem to be start fusing with each other. The Earth as we know it, with the superheroes, as well as the Mortal Kombat Earth. So suddenly you get these strange characters showing up in Metropolis, like Scorpion and Sub-Zero and Katana and all those people from Mortal Kombat, and the DC superheroes are like, who the hell are these guys, right? So then they end up fighting each other, and they end up going through all these rage. Their eyes turn yellow, and they get all mad, and even some of the own people on their own sides turn on each other. So it's this kind of fusing of these two worlds, and what's going on behind it all. Who's the grand master of this whole scheme? So you have to fight through 7 or 8 chapters where you control one fighter with each chapter, and usually do 3 to 4 fights as the story progresses in each chapter. So, and then you can play the game from either side. So after I played on the DC side, I switched over to Mortal Kombat and finished it that way as well. So pretty cool idea for a game. I like the collaboration between the two different series, and I'm not a big fan of like just street fighting games, because I find them so one-dimensional. Like, once you've played them for a little while, like, it's just the same thing over and over again, right? It's just fighting. But now that they have story modes actually in them, so you can play through a long story, that goes a long way to making them a little more palatable for me. But still, I do find them mostly kind of a little more one-dimensional, but definitely worth the play, especially for, oh, this one's a bargain, $3 at GameCycle. See? I'm a bargain hunter. Next up, and this game's hilarious, Shaq Fu, a Legend Reborn. So Shaquille O'Neal, like, I don't like basketball at all, but there's certain characters from the NBA that I have enjoyed over the years, and Shaq's probably the one I like the most. He just seems like a fun guy, not immature, but like it seems like he doesn't have a serious bone in his body, you know, like he just likes to have fun. And the fact that he wanted to make a video game of himself, like how can you not respect that, right? So back in the day when I was in high school, there was a Shaq Fu game, which I knew it was on the Sega Genesis. I'm assuming it was probably on Super Nintendo as well. And I never played it back then. I never had it. But as soon as I saw this released like a couple years ago, I was like, oh my God, I have to get this. And so the story is that a little baby, Shaq, floats down a river in China and is taken in and raised as a Chinese orphan. And as he grows, he's made fun of because he's this giant black guy with this thunderous voice. And but as he's brought up, he's also trained in the martial arts by a sensei named Ye. And eventually, as he grows to adulthood, there's suddenly a plot where Hollywood douchebags are trying to take over the world, and the main bad guy behind it is somebody named Yen-Lo Wang. And so you set out in this game to eventually deal with Yen-Lo Wang, but along the way you have to deal with all of his sub-bosses, which are the Hollywood douchebags, and they're all based on certain personalities who are in real life also douchebags. So there's a lot of parody in it. There's a lot of ridiculous storylines. It's so funny. I've heard people think it's offensive, but that, to me, that just makes it even better. Because I don't like it when people get offended about shit, because people got to be more like me and Shaq and just be, it's fun. It's funny. Life's okay. Stop being such a stick in the mud. So yeah, and the moves are crazy. You got these big moves Shaq can do, combos, soundtrack by Shaq. It's his actual voice doing all this stuff. So it's just full of action. It's a pretty short game overall, but it's also quite difficult in spots. And the one thing I really like about it is there's a lot of environmental objects that you can use. And pick up and beat the crap out of your enemies with, and that they're so fun. Like there's like street signs and things like that. There's barrels that you can roll as like a bowling ball, and it knocks them down and it makes like a bowling pin sound. It's just so fun, and just to beat them up too. Not much thinking, just some strategizing to get through those tougher areas, but just hack and slash and beat downs, and so much fun. And I think it's pretty cheap too, so it's like a pretty good game to get for a pretty good price. Next, been listening to the Megadeth Risk album for the last little while. This, I believe, was their 8th studio album from 1994, or was it 96? 99. Okay. There you go. This was kind of like, unless that was the reissue date, I don't know, somewhere in the mid to late 90s. This was kind of like, when I listened to it, it was almost like some experimenting going on. Some of the songs had like almost an electronic undertones to it, around the bass, or sorry, the drums, and some of the extra sound effects that were thrown in. Megadeth's never really done any ballads, but there were a couple songs on it that were more towards that end of things, a little slower, a little more ballady, but not quite. And then also a couple songs that had somewhat of almost a country vibe, not overwhelmingly so, but just those hints, just like the same thing, just hints. And it all added up for a pretty diverse and different album for them. It really was kind of an experimental album in my mind, and you know what? It was still Megadeth at its core. It was still their music driving it all, but just with these kind of different looks on some of the songs, and it worked. I loved it. I haven't found a Megadeth album yet that I don't like, and I don't believe that I ever will at this rate. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. It was something a little different from everything that came before it, and yeah, and I think I read online that it was hailed as kind of it was very well received. Recepted, is that a word? Received. Jesus, see, it's like, and it was also, like, it was touted as something different, a change in direction, at least for the one album for them. Last thing, Overkill, White Devil Armory, White Devil Armory album, which is their 17th album from the year 2006. Oh no, sorry, 2014. Oh, I'm way off. Overkill is a band that I only have one other album. I got this recently. I only have one other one from like the early 90s called Horoscope. I saw a video of theirs on Much Music back in the day, when I was in high school, and I was like, who are these guys? And so I picked up that album immediately and I loved it. But over the years, I just never got any more Overkill music as much as I wanted to, because it just seemed there was always something else I wanted to get that kind of trumped it for some reason. But Overkill, like, if you could say the big four, everybody knows the big four of thrash and heavy metal in the 80s that kind of made the genre. It was Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax, and Slayer. If you could make a case for there to be like a big five or a big six, like another band or two to enter the fray, Overkill would be a very good nomination. They formed in the very earliest of the 1980s, and they're just total thrash. And from listening to Horoscope, which was 1991, I think, or 93, up to this, almost or over 20 years later, like there's no difference. They did not change at all. It's massive riffs, heavy use of double bass on the drums, and their singer Bobby Blitz Ellsworth has this voice that's like, in my blog I made it like it's a Harley Davidson mixed with a monster truck mixed with a Ferrari. He's either screeching high or he's growling low. It's just this voice that just you can't, like, it's so recognizable once you've heard it and you can't ignore it. And their music has this energy and this fullness. It's like some bands, when you listen to them, it's like something's missing, you know? There's just something a little missing. It's either lacking a little bit of energy, a little get up and go, or a little, you know, it sounds like there should be another guitar in there or something. This is lacking nothing. This band is just like, you listen to the CD and you're like, Gar! It's like that old Maxell commercial where the dude's sitting in the chair and he turns on the stereo or whatever, right? And he's blasted back into his seat. Like, that's literally, they probably got that after listening to Overkill. Yeah, this album is just, apparently, this band has not slowed down at all. Still doing the thrash and still doing it perfectly. So, very happy I picked that up. And I do hope to eventually get some more and fill out my Overkill discography a little more over the coming years, and fill in some of those gaps, obviously, and see what else they have to offer. So, but that is it. I don't know how many minutes I'm at. I may not be able to post this for a while. I'll probably have to delete a bunch of shit just so I can get this online. But that's it for now. I will be back in the near future with more stuff. And until then, have a great rest of the weekend. And we will see you soon.